And there you have it. The markets are officially closed on this Wednesday, November 5th. Can't believe how quickly time is passing by. We're in November already. And we have a lot to talk about today. Welcome, investors and traders. The markets had a nice bounce today. And right in the final minute, not sure if you were watching there, but we had a little bit of a sell-off that I would call profit-taking intraday. Silver had a great day. PSLV, which we'll be talking about, had a great day. And before I bring on Nod, I just want to just show you something here on this chart of DIA. Remember, we have the downside target way down here at 455.57. And if you recall, I was talking about the possibility of it zigzagging down in more or less an ABCD pattern. Well, we have B forming right here. So A is at the top of the chart right there. Today we had a higher low, higher high. So there's your pivot B right at that moving average. And depending on what happens with the Supreme Court, we don't know really how the markets are going to react. I have a feeling that if they rule against Trump's tariffs, we could very well see an increase in volatility, which would bring us to a C and ultimately a lower D. So to talk a little bit more about that, let me bring on Nod from Nod Live. He is responsible for all the live news feed that our members get. We'll talk a little bit about that later as well. But Nod, what do you have showing coming across your news feed lines right now? What do you have?
AJ, thanks so much. Nice little dip at the close. We saw a nice sell-off in NVIDIA and Microsoft, so we'll have to look at that later on. But thank you all again for taking time out of your busy day to join us. AJ and I sure appreciate it. The team really appreciates all of you. Listen, we're limited with our data because we are now in the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. That said, the ADP did give us some data today. They said private companies added 42,000 jobs in October, following a decline last month, if you remember, of 29,000 in September. This did top the consensus estimate of 22,000. So the Fed is surely going to keep this in their back pocket, and we'll see what they do moving forward. Because remember, their next meeting is in December, and a lot of people are counting on them for a rate cut. But we'll see what happens. But AJ, I want to get right after this. I wanted to talk about this chart right here with regards to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's retail crowd is getting burnt with this most recent sharp downturn that we saw. A record amount of ETF inflow came in, and their average price, AJ, is around $100,000. So we're at that pain point where they say, people, it's between the diamond hands, as the cool kids say, and the bag holders. So AJ, with our Cryptex team going live this week, and we can't wait for that, can you give me a look at what you think about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe MSTR?
Well, if you look at my Bitcoin chart, you're going to see it's very similar to what you just showed, Nod, with this horizontal red line being the key role reversal that is now acting as support. Now, if you recall, last Wednesday, we talked about Bitcoin and how I had a two-part forecast where we hit the downside target, and I still have that upside target in this two-part forecast up at around, what is that, around 113, I believe it is. Let's say 113,302 to be exact. Now, if I zoom in a little bit more, you're going to see that we have a bullish harami right there. Now, for the brand new folks who are following us for the first time, understand that I'm a market technician. I follow candle charts more than I do line charts. And these two candle patterns are very important because if you look in the past, right, you could see back here, we also had a bullish harami, and look what happened to Bitcoin shortly thereafter. And, if you're following the charts and you know what a bullish candle is or a bearish candle, like we see up here, that's a bearish engulfing candle. And you can see obviously that the stock dropped after that. Bitcoin does a really good job hitting our targets. I think last count we're at like 95% hit rate on our targets. Now, I'm not including this upside target here up around 113,000, but I'm feeling very confident that we're going to see a nice bounce in Bitcoin. And I had a chance to message CJ and Matt from the Cryptex team. I'm starting to dabble in. They really lit a fire under me. When you listen to Matt and CJ talk on a webinar, you're going to get the urge to open up a Coinbase account or some crypto account and start trading. And I told Matt, I said, I bought some XRP right around 227. And I said, it's working out very nicely. It was up 10 cents after I bought it, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for $2.27, that's a nice little percentage move. And
Right.
Matt told me that, the crypto market, like equities markets, follow the technicals like a charm. And I would have to agree with Matt and CJ as well, as they look at the charts. But yeah, I still have that upside target. If you want to look at Ethereum, I guess you could look at ETH, or we do have a position. I will tell you, our members have a position in ETHA. So I just throw that out there so you know I do have a bias to the upside. We got into a nice January call position on this one. It's already up over 20%. I have a feeling, with the looks of this bullish harami right here on ETHA, which follows Ethereum, the Grayscale Ethereum ETF, I have a feeling that trade that we put on yesterday is going to wind up to be the trade of the week. So stay tuned on Friday as I talk more about that. But I do have an upside target on Ethereum up there around 37.72. And if you look at MSTR, we do have a position in this one as well. It's a very profitable position. It's a calendar spread that we have for our super spread traders. And there you go. You got another bullish harami. Now, let me just draw this out, Nod, for the folks that, again, need a little bit of a little help with that. So if you,
Please.
I mark body to body. Don't worry about the vertical lines. I'm marking the rectangle red candle that we see here against the smaller green body candle that falls within the body of the red candle. And that's exactly what you have down here. So like what we saw back here, there's a bullish harami. We saw a little bit of a rally. So with MSTR, I would put an upside target on that. I'm going to wait until the rapid fire session that starts at 6 p.m. because at least one of our members is going to mention MSTR. So I'll draw the targets out for them later on tonight. But we, as option traders, we want MSTR to start getting back up to the 340 level. And you might think, oh, that's a far stretch. Well, not really when you think about the range that this one has had, and then compare that range to what we're seeing in Bitcoin, because Michael Saylor has made it a point for to let the world know that he's more of a Bitcoin depository. He's holding on to a pretty large position of Bitcoin. So if we get that rally in Bitcoin, we're most likely going to see the rally in MSTR, Riot, a handful of the other crypto stocks, Coin perhaps, because Coinbase is the trading platform that a lot of people are using to trade these instruments. But I'm more bullish than bearish. I'm not super bullish, but I am more bullish than bearish, and we can make pretty good money on these, especially if you're trading options. So there you go. Bitcoin, MSTR, and Ethereum. What do we have are those from the audience, or did you throw those out to me, Nod?
No, there's a lot of great things. So you mentioned Ripple. Today Ripple announced a partnership with MasterCard, and then Solana is announcing an ETF. And AJ, it's going to be really interesting to see how some of these ETFs work out. I mean, the system works, but I mean, the more stress we put on it, we'll see what happens, because again, it's all tied to the underlying. But when you throw in leverage, put your seatbelt on. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Before you get into, I just want to show you something with Ripple. There's an index here that you could throw up. It's $XRP.
Right.
Now, I don't want to go too far into the crypto discussion because that's what CJ and Matt focus on. But like I said, they lit a fire under me right now, and all my eyes right now are on XRP because of the position that they're in, and perhaps some of the big announcements that are coming down the pipeline here. But if you look at the index itself, this is what I've been using to gauge my entry and exit points for the underlying coin itself, XRP. Now, you can't trade XRP on the Thinkorswim platform. You would have to go to one of the other crypto platforms. Like I said, Coinbase is what I'm using. There's another one, crypto.com you could use. I have that on my phone. I'm kind of experimenting. I'm not anchored into any one platform just yet, but I like the Coinbase charts because I have my charts set up almost exactly as the way I have them set up here on the Thinkorswim platform. But you can see on the XRP index, this is a full-fledged pivot. And then if you look down below, the CCI has a slight positive divergence. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that before we go on to your next question, Nod, because this is really important for the folks that are going to be joining Matt and CJ in the crypto room or in the Cryptex room. So if I expand my CCI down here, notice how the XRP index went and yesterday hit a lower low on the price action, pretty close to historic lows down here. You see that? But if you look at the CCI, it pivoted with a higher low. So when you have a lower low on price, but a higher low on the CCI, that's known as a positive divergence. And that's what that's why I pulled the trigger and went in on XRP. Now, you can look at the individual XRP chart on whatever crypto platform you're using, but I find this to be a really great tool when you're trying to make that decision and you need confirmation on whether or not to buy, hold, or sell any part of your position. So I just want to throw that out there for the audience. You know, I'm looking at Absurd Nerd there. There's a comment that came out. I would rather get an ETF rather than holding crypto directly. Well, you know, I think, again, I don't know. You have to save this question, Nod, for the Cryptex guys. But I do believe that there are going to be ETFs that do include XRP,
Yes,
and some of the other ones. So I don't know enough about that to really talk with any level of expertise. But that would be a great question for Matt and CJ. And by the way, after their first debut webinar, I put out more or less a hint to have them come and join us on a Wednesday. You're going to really enjoy these two guys. They're young, they're energetic, they're very knowledgeable, they're professional traders in the cryptocurrency market, and you could definitely learn a lot from them, even if we have a short half-hour session like we have here on YouTube. But
no,
go ahead,
sure.
yeah.
Bullish or bearish, we've got two of the best people in the industry. You're going to get a trading room. You're going to get publications. You're going to get market insight. You're going to love it. Check out the Cryptex room when it opens this week. We appreciate it.
Definitely.
You know, something a little bit less exciting, AJ, has become stock splits. You know, it used to be everyone would get excited. It's a guaranteed winner. But if you look at things like, I have a chart here with regards to Netflix. Everyone was kind of counting on it. They had a rotten quarter. So what they did was they pulled this out of their hat. They announced a 10-for-1 split. And the reaction was kind of a thud. I don't need you to go really into stock splits, but I mean, Netflix itself, it kind of has lagged behind after its amazing run that it had 5 quarters ago. So could you kind of do a deep dive on Netflix and also another kind of thud, Disney, because these are both content related. We know how much companies are spending on content. Is it worth the while? And are these providing you any opportunity?
Well, you know, if you look at your chart versus my chart, you have a daily chart. I have a monthly chart up here, and you can see there's a big difference in that Netflix has a super wide divergence from this 20-month moving average. That's the widest divergence that the stock has had in the history of the stock. Now, I've had a downside target on Netflix for a while now, and it looks like we're very, very close to hitting that target here at $1,066. In fact, today's low was just about $7.37 away from that target. Now, stock splits are funny because historically people rush in there and go, "Wow, I'm gonna get more shares now." Well, you're not. It doesn't dilute the market cap of the stock, and it doesn't create any more value. It makes it a little bit easier for the mom and pops out there that don't have enough money to trade $1,000, per share stock.
Right.
So, now it brings it closer down to a level where some people could actually own it. But I don't really want to get too far into the story because, number one, I don't subscribe to Netflix. I don't watch any cable television whatsoever. I turn it off. I tell people to turn it off to, cut down on the noise. But from a technical standpoint, you might get a little bit of a bounce here because there's a gap above the market. But longer term, I think it's headed for the downturn, especially if you get a strained economy with people that are already trying to stretch their dollars at the grocery store. They may have to cut back on some of these subscriptions, on entertainment. Now, when you look at Disney, pretty much in the same category, with one exception, is that Disney already came off of its wide divergence from the moving average. See, this is where Netflix is, where Disney once was. See that wide divergence? Again, this was we were talking about puts on Disney back here, and although I didn't take a put position, we were putting price targets way down below the market. And look what happened. Not only did it snap back to the 20-month moving average, but it whipsawed and the pendulum went the other way. Now Disney's going to be, I believe, stuck in this very wide trading channel. Now for the option traders, that's money. If it just oscillates or consolidates within that channel, you can buy and sell options all day long until it breaks out of the channel. Then you put it on pause and you go back to a directional play. But this is a good one to be trading, and it's got enough volatility for even spread traders to get in there and put some positions on, even if you're looking at calendar spreads going further out in time. I mean, just to give the option traders a little bit of taste of what I'm talking about, you could go out to January 2028 and buy a 29% volatility, and then come in and in the shorter months here and sell 40 to 50% volatility. So from a calendar spread angle, you could do pretty well in a stock like Disney that's range bound at this point. Yeah, and I don't care too much about the story, because you get sucked into the story, and then all of a sudden you love the story more than you love your own account, and you never get out of positions because you're so bought into the overall story of the stock that you hold on until it's a big problem. You see?
Well, there is a little bit of a story here. Rightfully so. You and I, we spend a lot of time talking about precious metals, and since our last midweek report, gold hit the stereotype, the big number of 4,000, silver hit 50. And it pulled back a bit. So I've got a chart up here just showing kind of the vertical moves that we've had, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, but they all kind of look the same, AJ. But, I think the big underline for me with gold is the amount that central banks are buying. Now, you've got a little bit more of a story. You've been personally trading both. Would you mind spending just a couple of seconds explaining the difference between SLV and PSLV? You've been pretty vocal about it, but as of late, that seems to have paid off. For those that have not heard you talk about it, would you mind shedding some light?
Well, yeah, and I have to do a shout out to Zero Hedge, because they did us a great favor. I wrote an article over the weekend that was published on Monday morning, and it went out at around 8:30, I believe. Not you're the one that went to Zero Hedge and actually posted it on their website. But what happened is, I guess they liked the article so much that they left it on for the entire day, the following day, which was yesterday. And they left it on the front page, top dead center. And we got a lot of comments and a lot of views on that one. So I know it's a hot topic, but mainly, just in a nutshell, the SLV position, which is what I've been trading for about 17 years. I get in, I get out, I sell position, I parlay it, make the position bigger. But as we get closer and closer to what I believe is going to be the bigger end of the short squeeze, we're already seeing a short squeeze in silver, but this is a little bit of a pullback or a correction. I think what we're going to see to follow is the real shortage, and the news of the shortage of physical silver is going to start to take hold of the ETFs, especially. Now, SLV is often referred to as paper silver.
Right.
They mark the value of SLV against the value of the silver futures. But in a short squeeze, there is a chance they could actually stop trading in SLV because they may not have enough silver to back the valuation of that ETF. Whereas PSLV is backed by physical gold and held by the Royal Canadian Mint, where everything is transparent and made public, where every numbered bar that they hold is published. So they are holding the physical silver. So PSLV is the safer one to be in. And so what I'm doing is I'm making a move to slowly migrate from my SLV position to PSLV. Now, not a shout out to our members on Monday, where I showed them this. I did an overlay of SLV on top of the chart of PSLV. Now, let me just explain this. You could see that the red and the green line up here is SLV. So you can see the down legs on SLV, and the green is the up legs in SLV. But the blue is PSLV. So when I see a wide divergence between the valuations of SLV and PSLV, because they don't always trade in lockstep, when PSLV becomes undervalued as compared to SLV, I will sell my SLV like I did 2 days ago. I sold my SLV here. Yesterday it dropped, and I told all of our members exactly where I was going to be buying back in, and I did. And I bought PSLV down here, and look what happened. I wound up picking up extra PSLV shares in the divergence and the drop in the overall silver market. Now, that might seem a little complicated, but this is very simple to put on your chart. Not if you want. If you have this layout, maybe you could post my layout for those Thinkorswim traders, and,
Sure.
and they could put that. Oh, you don't see any drawings here? I don't know what happened.
That's all right.
Okay, so if you want to put that link
Yep.
to members that are watching, they could copy my screen right here and paste it to their own platform. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. I think for the upside, I think we're getting ready to make another move higher on both PSLV and SLV. If you look at /SI, this is the silver futures, very, very close to a bullish engulfing here. And look down below. See the CCI? Make that a lot bigger. You see that? It's pivoting. That's not a hinge. That CCI is pivoting higher. So that's telling me the buyers are starting to move in. And if you're long it or thinking about getting long PSLV or SLV or even the silver miners, I believe this is the time to be doing that. Especially, I got to throw this out there. Here's a freebie for our viewers. Look at AG. Look at this. It didn't pivot yet, but I can almost guarantee you tomorrow this is going to be up. Now, can you still trade this in the after hours? Yeah, you can. Say you could trade it right now at 1064 with your broker if you're going to extended hour trading. Now, that's what I'm telling you, almost guarantee, because SLV silver futures are all up. This is a cheap mining stock, but what I like best about it is that today it filled that gap. You see that? 80% of the time, gaps fill. Can't help but get excited about this because it's so accurate. 80% of the time, these gaps fill. And then after these gaps fill, you got an 80% chance that's going to turn up and start filling these gaps above the market that are still open. You see that? So you've got these gaps above the market more or less acting as price magnets. And here's a stock that anyone could trade with even a small account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and make a forecast on this one right here on the live broadcast on YouTube. So I'm putting an upside target of 1162, almost $1 higher. So you're talking what, 9.5% in, I believe, a very short period of time. And the beautiful thing about AG, for the option traders, if you don't want to spend that much money, you could go out to January and buy some really cheap options here for around 85 cents. Get that? 85 cents. That's about $85 per option contract. And that's going out further in time, so you're not going to suffer too much time decay. Nod, look at this, 23 minutes into this broadcast. Look how much we covered, and look how much more we still have to cover. We could go on for 2 hours here. Unfortunately, we only have 30 minutes. But what do you have next? I got some comments rolling in.
Yeah, a comment just from real quick from a very patient Barbara. Again, I know you're trading it personally, but when will your next purchase in PSLV? We can't give advice, but what's your next purchase level on PSLV?
Oh, that was yesterday. I bought it all, and I told our members when exactly I was going to be buying it. Yeah, I'll show you on the chart because I had that marked on this. I showed this fan line. You see, this is the number 3 fan line right here. And I said that there's a good chance this gap is going to fill. You see, just what I talked about in AG, the downside gap came within 2 cents of filling or 6 cents of filling here. And I bought it. I told our members I would be buying that back right around the 15.5 level. And it got down to 15.51. I bought it all back at 15.56. So I'm all in 100% on PSLV and the combined SLV position. So I'm all in right now, and I'm looking for the next leg higher. Now, whether or not we get up to my target up here, I'll have to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to sell that. I have a dotted line over here showing me where the gap fill is going to be. but I may sell some more SLV up here looking for a pullback. So when the silver markets pull back again, perhaps I'll buy my PSLV, and that's how I'm parlaying back and rolling at the same time. So I'm parlaying the position, making it bigger. When it drops, I buy back more of the PSLV than I had before. And I'm timing it with the charts because the metals and mining companies do a great job following these technical signals. And if you're not familiar with technical analysis, come on by StickyTrades. We have StickyTrades University where we'll teach you how to read the charts. We'll teach you about options, teach you about risk management, teach you about price patterns. You name it, we've got the topics on our university page there.
Well, listen, AJ, at 6 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a full hour of you fielding and forecasting 50-plus tickers. I'd like to get to some of these patient folks because this half hour is almost evaporated. If you don't mind, TT would like us to look at AMD, please. And what's your update there?
Well, AMD looks like it's starting to turn back up here. You see this bullish engulfing here? I was on a 1-hour call with Dr. Rob, who has this position, and I was talking to him about this one. This one is a massive bullish engulfing. You see now, this bullish engulfing, it's hard to see that little candle from yesterday. If you look straight down, you can see my volume bars are color-coded to the color of the body of the candle. So that's a massive bullish engulfing, and we had a big lift in volume today. So AMD, you want me to put a forecast on this, not, or you
yes,
want
please.
me to?
Yes, please.
All right, now it doesn't look like much, but this point wise, this is a pretty big move. I'll go to 264 and a half. So you're talking about $8, $8 to the upside. I'll get rid of some of these pennies, just go right to the $0.50 there. So I'll put an upside target of 264 and a half. And the reason I'm going to the upside, if you look down below, the CCI is starting to hinge. That's not a full-fledged pivot, but see how it's changing the angle? Now, I'll throw this out there because this is what we do for our option traders. AMD is a more expensive stock, obviously, but if you're an option trader and you're looking for something to do, you want to get a good return on your money, you could turn around with roughly 2 weeks left and sell some of these out-of-the-money credit put spreads, and you could get some decent returns if it stays over 220. Now, I'm going to say that again, but more slowly. If you think the stock is going to stay over 220, which is a good chance that's going to happen over the next 2 weeks, you could sell out of the money put spreads down here, collect cash, and if the stock continues to stay where it is or goes higher, you keep the cash for a small margin requirement. And we do that quite often, especially with our VIPs. We do a lot of credit spreads, both with call spreads and put spreads. So with a minute and a half left, Nod, what else we got? We'll squeeze in maybe one more ticker symbol.
Well,
Go ahead.
a very polite Daryl, who was raised well, who has manners. He says, can you please look at Starbucks?
SBUX is
yes,
the
please.
ticker symbol there. I love coffee. Bullish engulfing. Look at that. Now, the market's closed on a high note. Starbucks definitely closed on a high note. Let me do this. I might as well while we're putting price targets. Now, look at my price targets on Starbucks have hit. It's almost 100%. Hit back here, downside hit, upside hit, downside hit. I'm putting an upside target on this one at 84.67. 84.67. So you're talking about a little bit better than 2% to the upside on that one. So for option traders, again, you could go out and look at some of the out of the money calls, maybe January, February, even into March. And you could do really well going with a directional play, as long as, I got to throw this in there, as long as you're managing risk, not trading over your head, not getting emotionally involved with the news of this stock. Whether you like coffee or not, it should not influence your position. You still have to manage risk. But I say upside target of 84.67 on Starbucks is very much in the cards. So, Nod, we didn't run out of ticker symbols, that's for sure.
No.
We ran out of time, but I have to do a shout out to the folks that are laying comments down there. Thank you so much. Be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. That's the most important one, the subscribe button. So you're notified next time when you hit that bell. You'll notify the next time that we have the broadcast going out. You won't miss it at all. Nod, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
Thanks again for the Cryptex guys. We're going to see you on Friday. And thank all of you. Make sure you keep your stops in place, keep your eyes on the charts, and we'll be back next time. Have a good evening. So long.